This is Brent. Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com. Coming at you from the remote hinterlands of the Wabash River Valley, where the hogs, the frogs, and the dogs keep up a racket all night long. Here we go. Question, Catechism on the Constitution of the United States. This is stuff, I like this catechism. This is stuff I learned when I was being prepared to take the Constitution's test, which I had to do to graduate from high school. They wouldn't let me graduate. Can you believe that? Why don't they do that now? Well, that's the way we did it. What does this mean? When a person has found out some new and useful contrivance, Congress may give him an exclusive right to make and sell what he has contrived. Okay, for a certain number of years. During that time, nobody else may make or sell that article without permission from the man who contrived it. I like that word, contrived. And if they do, they are liable to be punished. This is called the right of patent. Patent, P-A-T-E-N-T. Whoever writes a book may also have the exclusive right to print or sell it for a certain time. This is called copyright. Patent right and copyright. Let's talk about patent right and copyright. Now, what I'm going to tell you about patent law, I learned from my older brother, Davey. And the reason I've interviewed him on the radio and all that. The reason that I do, because he is a patent lawyer. He became a patent lawyer after he was a naval officer. And then he got out, and him and I both, let's see, I think we were in law school at the same time. We weren't just youngsters when we went to law school. Neither he or I. I wasn't middle-aged. I was young, but I wasn't a youngster like a lot of the fellas. I'd done quite a bit of things. I had worked in mining fields. I'd done about a dozen years of military service. And he had two more. He'd done 20, over 20. But he became a patent lawyer. To be a patent lawyer, anybody can be a patent lawyer. It's a federal jurisdiction. It's not state jurisdiction. What do you mean, Brent? Well, it's important we understand there's a difference between the two sovereignties. There's the general government in Washington, D.C., and there's the state government. The general government in Washington, D.C., according to the Constitution of the United States, has exclusive jurisdiction, exclusive authority over a couple of things. Number one, patents and copyrights. No state court in America has any authority to hear a patent case. This is what our Constitution carves out expressly and limits to the general government in Washington, D.C. Patent law and copyright law. The other subject is admiralty law. Admiralty law is exclusive jurisdiction of the federal courts. The state courts of your state or any other state has no authority to hear an admiralty case. That's why when you go into a federal courtroom, oftentimes you will see a flag with the gold fringes. What does that mean? That's an acknowledgement, a symbol that says we do have admiralty jurisdiction here. If it's an admiralty case, the court has admiralty jurisdiction. It used to be that in America, pretty much the only cases that came before federal courts in the not too distant past were admiralty cases. Why? Because the legislation of our federal government, our general government in Washington, D.C. is very limited, and Congress just doesn't have a lot of authority under the Constitution to make much legislation at all. The only thing that Congress has the authority to legislate concerning, number one, is patent and copyright. Number two, the law of the sea, admiralty. This is the congressional jurisdiction. Number three, treason. Number four, counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States, counterfeiting. Number five, piracies and felonies committed on the high seas. Well, see, that's part of admiralty, though, right? piracies and felonies, admiralty. And then number, six things. Six, international law. International law. The states do not have jurisdiction under the Constitution of the United States to form agreements among themselves and deal with foreign governments and the Indian tribes. They don't have that jurisdiction. The Constitution of the United States says specifically that the general government, the federal government in Washington, D.C., has authority to make treaties with the Indian tribes. And they have, and they still do. And they're in the same category as foreign countries. And no state has authority to do that. The states are sovereign within their jurisdiction, but there are certain things, not very many, but certain things that the Constitution of the United States carves out and says this is what the general government, the federal government, has jurisdiction concerning. And the states cannot, even the state courts and the state legislatures have no authority to make any legislation, to even hear any admiralty or patent cases or copyright cases. The books that I have written are copyrighted. That means I applied for a copyright. The winterized version of the Bible, the comparative law text, excellence of the common law, all of my material I copyright. Why do I do that? And I do it in the general government, with the general government, the federal government, because they're the only place you can do that, according to our Constitution of the United States. Why do I do it? So that people won't steal it and pervert it. And that's what piracy of my brother, patent attorney, Dave, he calls it piracy. Matter of fact, somebody said they'd written my brother's book on patent law. He'd written a book, it's called something piracy, or I've read the book, I don't remember, but it has the word pirate in it. And what he does is, he was a naval officer, so he starts out, and he has in his preface, and he writes what it's all about, and he talks like a pirate, with all of the pirate words you used to hear and the way they say them on the old movies, avast and all that kind of stuff, and landlubber, and see, there's what today people call pirating of people's audio and what is written and their videos and those kind of things. And it's a violation of copyright law and patent law. Let me go more to the heart of copyright and patent law with the little time we have left. I want to stop at the top of the hour, Miss Francine, or thereabouts, and let's hear another song. But copyright, under our law, our Constitution, and our common law, remember, our Constitution is a brief of common law government. The things that are copyrightable are useful, what the Constitution calls useful information. See, the copyright laws and the patent laws go together like bread and butter, like hand and glove. If I make an invention of something, like this fella calls it an innovation, a contrivance, I'm not creating anything. I'm taking the laws of nature. Think about the man that invented the combustible gasoline motor. He didn't create anything. No, that's not creation. He took the laws of nature and put them together in such a way that we have this engine of power. And he used 3 of the laws of nature to do it. And there are only 3 machines in the laws of nature. Only 3 machines. Very simple. And these fundamental machines enable all mechanical contrivances. Inventions, we call them. We're not God. We don't change the laws of nature. We put them together in such a way that they create power. And those 3 fundamental machines are the wheel, the inclined plane. Did you learn this in high school? I did. The inclined plane. And the pulley. The wheel, the inclined plane, and the pulley. And by taking those 3 and even combining them, 2 or more of them together, you increase the work that power will do. For instance, if you have a wheel on a cart or wagon, you can pull it easier than dragging it along the ground. So you enhance your own strength, or the strength of the tractor or the semi-tractor pulling it. So you got the wheel. That increases our ability to do work. Then you have the inclined plane, and you can put that on the back of a U-Haul truck. And it takes less energy to get things and less power to get things up into the truck. But what if, and my father, for example, let's talk about combining those. My father used to load 55-gallon drums of crude oil or motor oil or whatever else he had into a pickup truck by himself. When he was a young man, I saw him do it. You say, well, he's that big and strong. Can you imagine how much that would weigh? Well, bigger. Do the math. A pint's a pound the world around of water, and most other fluids are thereabouts, but not exactly. But if a pint is a pound, how many pints in a gallon? Well, there's 4 quarts in a gallon. This is the common law system of measurement, the English system. 4 quarts in a gallon. They're, what, 2 pints to a quart? Is that right, Miss Francine?
Yes.
Okay, so there are 8 pints to a gallon. So if you get a jug of milk, a gallon of milk, it's going to weigh 8 pounds. Okay, we've got a 55-gallon drum. Somebody take your little computer on your telephone and tell me 8 times 55, well, 8 times 50. 8 times 50 would be, what, 400? Does that sound right, Miss Francine? Yeah.
440, 8 times 50, 440.
And then 5 times 8 would be 40. 5 eighths are 40, so it'd be 440 pounds this drum weighs. Now, there are men that can lift 440 pounds, but most men can't. But add to that, there are no handles on the drum. There's no way he could get his arm around to pick it up. So how did he get that 55-gallon drum up in the back of the pickup truck? I saw him do it. I've seen him do it more times than I can count. I'll tell you how he does it. Well, he just tips it over on his side. He put 2 long 2x4s or 2 long planks up in the truck, and he rolled it up in there, see? That's combining the wheel, 2 motors, only 3 only 3 machines that God has given us to work with.
You're holding 5 fingers up.
What?
You're holding 5 fingers up. There's only 3, and you got your 5 fingers up.
Well, I was going to count on it. That's good.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Math is not my forte, so I'm going to preface that with this. So 1, 2, 3. So we have the inclined plane, the wheel, and the pulley, which increases power. But my father combined the inclined plane. He'd lay those planks or those 2x4s down, and the wheel, because he could roll it. It is a wheel when you get it down on its side. And by combining those two, he, who could not have otherwise lifted that into the back of the pickup truck, got those 55-gallon drums in the back of the pickup truck. Or take the screw. You got to have a screw to have a motor. It's screwed together in different places. What is a screw? A wood screw or a metal screw. That's a combination of 2 of those 3 fundamental machines. The inclined plane and the wheel. You see that? That's a different way to combine them. And when you screw something in with a screw, you're dealing with an inclined plane that goes around in a circle like this. A stairwell that goes like this is a combination of the inclined plane and the wheel. There you are again. Well, you can get more sophisticated with that, and you can have a V8 solid block motor like the Ford company invented. They contrived it together, and they figured out how to get a solid block motor in one pour of the molten metal. And that increased the longevity and the reliability of the V8 motor. Well, that's what inventions are. People do that. And then that's the patent laws are intended to give me incentive to do those kind of things and to protect my exclusive right to it for a certain period of time, so that I have incentive to make inventions. Do you realize, stop to consider how this has contributed to making America the powerful nation that it is? You just show me in a country who has the rights to inventions and who has a right to copyright, ultimately, who has control, and I'll show you a country that will either be wealthy and powerful and one that won't. If it's left in the individual to do that, the country will be powerful. When we went into World War II and World War I, the government did not take over manufacturing. No, we left that up to individuals, individual inventions, and the private sector, because that's the incentive to do those things. We could not have invaded the islands against the Japanese the way we did without the Higgins boat. The Higgins boat. And in Europe and in Sicily, the Higgins boat. Well, who invented the Higgins boat? An Irishman by the name of Higgins that lived out in the swamps in Louisiana. Old Higgins. He invented the Higgins boat. Why did he invent the Higgins boat? Well, they needed a boat down there. They had a lot of oil production. They had no way or no real easy way to get the equipment out to the oil platforms out in the swamps. So he came up with this little boat that would go fast, but it didn't have much draft. And people called it the Higgins boat. Well, that boat, because of his invention, he had incentive to do it because he could make money. He had to keep those oil wells going. You see, there has to be incentive. And incentive comes on the individual level. And by the way, here's another thing about patents and copyrights. A corporation cannot get a patent or a copyright. A corporation, an LLC, a C Corp, an S Corp. No. Only individual persons with heat coming out of their heads live can get a patent or a copyright according to our law, under our Constitution of the United States, because that is the only place that incentive works. It comes back to the individual, my friends. Yes, the same thing is true of mining claims. Just a side note, mining claims, corporations cannot locate mining claims on federal land. It's against the law. The only people that can locate mining claims are real live-bodied persons, not corpses like corporations. That's the incentive, see? The incentive must be individual or it does not exist at all. So you've got these inventions, and then you've got copyright to protect what people write when they write down how these inventions work. They go together hand in glove like bread and butter. Invention, patent law, and copyright law. Now, it is wrong in America that we copyright rap music. That's not lawful. That's not part of our common law. No. Constitution of the United States says useful writings. The word useful is key. Rap music is not useful. There's not really any music that fits in to that. Recently, in the not too distant past, when I was running for Congress, maybe you've heard me tell this story, I ran into another fellow running for Congress in Washington, D.C. at a big get-together. And I was walking around, and I was saying, hello, my name is Brent Winters. I'm so-and-so, congressional district. What's your name? Just doing the PR thing. And just a crowded room, one person after another, and I'd turn 60 degrees this way. I'd see another person. I'd shake their hand, and I did that, and I turned, and I saw this little man, I mean little, stand in front of me. It looked like 40 yards of beat up moose hide. I mean, the guy looked rough, like he'd been on drugs for a few decades. Don't know if he had or not, but it wouldn't surprise me when I found out who it was. I shook his hand, and I told him who it was. I'm so-and-so, I'm Brent Allen Winters. And he said, in a very weak and apologetic voice, he said, and he smiled, and he just kind of said, well, my name is Sonny Bono. I said, really? I said, I thought, well, how do you deal with something like this? So I said, well, I know what we can do. If you're Sonny Bono, I'm Jack Benny. How's that? I thought that would be a way to kind of loosen things up a little bit, because I didn't believe him. And then all of a sudden, seemed like out of nowhere, I didn't notice, there were two men standing on both sides of him, about 6.5 foot tall, probably weighed 250, 275 apiece. And one of them looked down at me and said, no. He said, he smiled, but he said, no, this really is Sonny Bono. And I looked up at him. I looked back down at Sonny, and I said, well, pardon me, Sonny. I hadn't seen you in 40 years. He'd been off television 30 years, however long it was, a few decades. I hadn't seen you, and I didn't recognize you. And he laughed. Well, he went on to become congressman in the vicinity of Palm Springs, California. Well, he had been mayor before that, see? Then he ran for Congress, became congressman. He became the biggest fundraiser in the Republican Party. You could have him come and do a fundraiser for you. Of course, people would come. All the baby boomers remember him. They'd come and see old Sonny, and he was raising money, and then I'm fully convinced the Democrats killed him. They said he died in a skiing accident. How? Well, he just ran smack dab into a tree and killed him. Now, this guy's an accomplished skier, my friends. I've learned about Sonny. Sonny had been skiing for a long time, and the chances of a man running smack dab into a tree head on while you're skiing is almost, a guy like him, never happens. Besides, the ski slopes are made and the trees aren't in the path of the slopes, you know. And there's a million, it could have happened. Of course, they know that, the people that may have, but I think they saw money is the mother's milk of politics. There is no politics without money. And he was conservative, but he pushed through Congress a bill that said that copyright laws on songs, and that's something he was familiar with. He'd written songs, simple songs that people went crazy over. You know, he started out on Sunset Strip back in the 50s. You could go into a record shop and they'd say, hey, you got any songs? Yeah. Well, let's record it. And they had a little recording studio set up, and they would record on the spot for a small fee and cut a vinyl record for you. And then you could take that vinyl record, and big business doing this back in the 50s and early 60s. You could take that vinyl record and reproduce it and send it to radio stations and try to become famous. And that's what he did. And he just happened to write a song called I Got You, Babe. Yeah, that was it. I Got You, Babe. That was the theme song of Sonny and Cher. And then he wrote, and the beat goes on. Simple songs with a simple single message that people liked, and he became famous. But he decided that the copyright laws didn't cover those songs long enough for people had to have incentive to write songs. Well, here's my point. And again, I get this information from the research and the experience of my older brother. Those kind of songs, the copyright, the Constitution of the United States, the copyright clause, the people that put it there, the ratifiers, had no intention that stuff would protect music. In other words, things that weren't useful to describe inventions. That's really what it was all about. How do we maintain prosperity? They were more, in those days, rightly so, they were practical about being productive. Songs can be very silly. Very silly. And a lot of them are. They aren't anything that makes us a productive and powerful people, according to the people that ratified the Constitution of the United States. But we pervert the Constitution by applying it in ways that we have no business doing. But if we focus more on productivity to make our lives more productive for our God. Now, don't tell me that he was writing songs to make God happy. He may thought he was. I don't know. He was a part of that bohemian world, that hippie stick world, that beatnik world. He came up in the 40s and 50s. He was an older guy. Remember, he was a lot older than Cher. When I saw him, he wasn't young anymore. And his attitude was the hippie stick attitude. We need protection too, but the law doesn't protect you. Our Constitution doesn't mean that by what it says. Well, I don't care. I want it anyway. And so now he's got this 99-year copyright thing on music. That's what I remember, unless Congress has changed it. I don't know if they have or not. This is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com.